People with ovaries and a uterus have a hormone cycle that occurs approximately once a month. The cortex of the ovary runs around the outer edge and is made up of many follicles. Only one oocyte will mature during each cycle. All follicles, about 2 million, are present at birth, but only about 400 get to mature. The oocytes age with the person, suggesting a reason why older people may be more likely to produce children with genetic diseases. As the follicle develops into a vesicular follicle, the egg begins oogenesis and completes meiosis I. This is only the first division of meiosis. One of the daughter cells goes on to become a secondary oocyte that will continue oogenesis, and the other is a polar body that will not become an egg. When ovulation occurs, the follicle bursts and the egg is expelled into the uterine tube. The portion of the follicle that is left behind in the ovary becomes the corpus luteum and produces estrogen and progesterone hormones. If fertilization does not occur, the corpus luteum degenerates after about 10 days. If the egg is fertilized, the corpus luteum will enlarge and produce hormones to sustain the early pregnancy. The ovarian cycle is described in 2 phases. The first half, as the follicle and oocyte develop, is called the follicular phase. After ovulation occurs and the corpus luteum is present, it is called the luteal phase. By the end of the luteal phase, a new follicle has started to develop and will begin the development of the next follicular phase. The uterus also undergoes a cycle called the uterine cycle in response to the hormones in the body. A typical menstrual cycle is described in about 28 days. It is normal for menstrual cycles to be as short as 21 days or as long as 40 days. The uterine cycle begins with the first day of menstruation. Blood and other tissues flow out of the vagina during the menstrual period. This occurs at the same time that the follicular phase in the ovary is beginning. The sex hormones estrogen and progesterone are at a low level, causing the endometrial lining of the uterus to disintegrate and slough off, bursting blood vessels. By day 6 through 13, the developing follicle is producing increasing amounts of estrogen. The increased estrogen causes the endometrial lining to become thicker and develop blood vessels. It is called the proliferative phase. The brain releases luteinizing hormone and follicle-stimulating hormone, which cause ovulation to occur. After ovulation, the amount of estrogen and progesterone goes up because it is being secreted by the corpus luteum in the ovary. This causes the endometrial lining to thicken more and secrete a mucus. This is called the secretory phase, in which the uterus is ready to receive an embryo. If no embryo implants, the corpus luteum breaks down and the levels of estrogen and progesterone fall. Once the hormone levels fall, the endometrial lining again begins to break down, starting menstruation again. Estrogen is also largely responsible for secondary sex characteristics, such as greater accumulation of fat, wider hips, and breast development. Termination of the ovarian and uterine cycles is called menopause and happens around 45 to 55 years of age. A person is considered to have completed menopause when they have not had a menstrual cycle for a year. If the egg is fertilized by the sperm, this usually occurs in the uterine tube, and the embryo begins to develop before even reaching the uterus. It implants in the endometrial lining of the uterus to develop. The developing fetus and the endometrial lining work together to build a placenta. This will provide nourishment, remove waste, and produce hormones. The placenta produces human chorionic gonadotropin hormone to prevent the corpus luteum from degenerating. This is the hormone picked up on home pregnancy tests.